Good morning, friends. Welcome to Global Focus. Today is the 1st March 2026, and we'll see in one day how the geopolitical map has shifted. The United States and Israel have carried out a coordinated strike, killing Iran's supreme leader and key military commanders. The Strait of Hormuz is reportedly closed. Retaliation has already begun. This comes just months after the 2025 12-day war. So this isn't just about Iran, it's about deterrence, it's about regime survival, and it's about the balance between the US-led order and a rising Russia-China alignment. The question we need to ask is simple. Has this made the world safer or more unstable? Joining me today is Dr. Adityanjee, President of the Council for Strategic Affairs, one of the most incisive strategic analysts in the region. Adityanjee, thank you for being here on what is clearly a historic day.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Sinha, for inviting me back on Global Focus. We are witnessing history being made.
So what has just happened? What is the strategic logic? Operation Epic Fury targeted Tehran, Isfahan, Qom, Karaj, and Kermanshah. Even naval facilities at Kinrak and Chabahar. This was not a symbolic strike. This looks like a state decapitation.
This is basically regime change.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Whatever the apparent or superficial region or sugar-coated region that Iran is developing nuclear weapons, we told after the 12-day war and earlier strikes that Iran's nuclear capabilities have been pulverized. Pulverized was the word used. So if they were pulverized then, where is the threat coming from now? There were some intelligence reports from Israel that, they are rebuilding their nuclear enrichment program deeper under the mountain where even the MOABs, the mother of all bombs, cannot penetrate. So that is there. Issue is that what you want to achieve. And it is very, very clear that US and Israel want to do regime change in Iran. And they have openly exhorted the civilian population in Iran to do the regime change with their facilitative strikes. So it is not about Iran's nuclear program. It is strictly about regime change, the way the attacks have gone on and are continuing.
But what we see now is just opposite, because the population is with the supreme leader. They are chanting in their favor.
So if you look at the state of Iran, it's a highly divided state. There are people who feel repressed and who are repressed, genuinely repressed. They seem to be celebrating. They celebrated the killing of Khamenei. But then there are hardcore supporters of the Islamic regime.
Yeah.
And the Islamic regime is still entrenched. And it looks like that they had the succession plans. In 12-day war, a number of army generals or IRGC generals were killed, and they had them replaced. And in Saturday's strikes, almost 48 leaders of Islamic regime have been killed. That not just includes Khamenei, but also former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad,
mm,
and defense minister, I believe, and some generals. So it was a decapitating strike, but looks like that the president of the country has not been killed.
mm,
And they have a mechanism of called interim council. So with the president, the Supreme Court Chief Justice, and the Speaker of the Parliament. So that troika
mm,
takes interim power. And there are some unconfirmed reports that troika may not have Speaker of the Parliament, but a member of the Guardianship Council, that is like the religious supreme body.
mm,
They will make decisions about choosing the next supreme leader. There was some unconfirmed report about Khamenei's son, I think his name is Mojtaba
mm.
Khamenei. He's 56 years old. He's also a cleric, that maybe he might be chosen as a successor, or Ali Larjani may be chosen as the successor. But those are the things going on. Then you have a very large number of Iranian diaspora that is abroad. And this is the diaspora that pretty much went abroad when Shah was overthrown. So there's a large number of Iranian diaspora that is in US. They are very sympathetic to the, you know, idea of dismantling the Islamic regime. So yes, they are cheering. And a section of that Iranian diaspora has supporters of the pretender to the throne,
Mhm.
Raza Pahlavi Jr. In fact, they are also cheering it. So, depending upon, it's not a unified celebration. There is still some support in Iran for the
Mhm.
Islamic regime.
Mhm.
Issue is that how long the Islamic regime will be able to take these strikes without crumbling down.
So I have three scenarios.
Hmm.
The outcome of this strike, what will happen in near future. So one is the internal implosion followed by consolidation under the IRGC. And the second one is the popular uprising. Precondition exists, economic collapse, massive January protest, internal isolation. Is the opposition structurally capable of transition? And the third one, Iran absorbs the blow and retaliates long term. So what do you see happening?
So, this is not a single strike. Let's not fool ourselves.
Mhm.
There is escalation of the conflict happening. Iran, or rather, I should say, Islamic regime in Iran has retaliated. Uh, there are now 12 countries involved in this regional conflict,
Oh.
not just US and Israel and Iran. Unfortunately, because Iran threatened to strike at the US military bases all over in the West Asia,
Yeah.
and they carried on with that threat. So even countries like Bahrain or Oman or Saudi Arabia are now getting involved because they've been struck. But Iranian logic is that you attack us, United States and Israel, and the regional countries are supporting them by offering facilities.
Mm.
So you are a legitimate target. And clearly it's an asymmetric war. So sort of, folding up the tent and surrendering totally, what would you expect from the Islamic regime? It's a very belligerent, very nationalistic regime, whether you like it or not. And they
Yeah.
had said there will be some response. So there has been response, and it has led to a situation where the United States CENTCOM has agreed that 3 American soldiers have
Mm.
been, 5 are wounded. IRGC is claiming that they sent 4 ballistic missiles that hit USS Abraham Lincoln
Yes.
a Nimitz class aircraft carrier. Now, there's no objective evidence of that. IRGC keeps on making that claim. US CENTCOM has said that no, that is not true. You don't see any objective evidence, and the USS Abraham Lincoln is not an isolated ship. Yes, whenever the carrier moves, it moves with the carrier strike force. So there are other ships and interceptors and all. So you
Mm-hmm.
cannot just hit at the carrier because it is supported by an armada
Mm.
of, you know, various other ships,
Yeah.
almost 30 odd. So bottom line is that the conflict is escalating. Even UK that had initially denied facilities in Diego Garcia to United States for carrying on some of these strikes have
Mm-hmm.
now said that they will join
Mm.
because of political reasons. So you are seeing escalation of the conflict. Now, the three scenarios you sort of outline, technically, one would be able to comment if the hostilities had ceased. Hostilities are still continuing. In this situation, Iran is isolated.
Yeah.
The only regional allies they have are Houthis
Mm.
in Yemen, and Houthis are saying that they will block the Suez Canal.
Mm.
Iran has already talked about closing the Strait of Hormuz, from where 20% of the world oil supplies passes through. So you are looking at a situation that if the conflict is prolonged, there will be increase in oil prices worldwide. Will the remnant of the Islamic regime be able to hunker down and take strike after strike?
Mm.
That's the question we should be looking for. You know, it's a totally asymmetric war.
Mm.
United States has complete air dominance over Iran. Iran's internet was operating at 4% level. I tried to actually log on to Tehran Times this morning. I was able to do that.
Oh.
But I try to do it now. No, you cannot actually log on to Tehran Times, which means their all internet is down, totally down. This morning I read that Iran officially announced
Mm.
that Khamenei had been killed, and they had announced 40 days of official mourning for him.
Yeah.
So, third option, it will depend how long this conflict continues and how long the Islamic regime will be able to hunker down. As far as the issue of popular uprising and the opposition taking care of taking power,
Mm.
we saw in recent weeks and months
Mm.
that regime Islamic regime killed almost 32 to 40,000 Iranian citizens who were protesting.
Yeah. They were again going to be killed. The second batch, they were preparing for that.
Yeah. So if you have that kind of situation that the Islamic regime has been entrenched since 1979. So it'll be foolhardy to think that they will be toppled
Mm.
by a few strikes alone. They
Mm-hmm.
have taken these strikes and they have weathered the sanctions. You know, these people may not have that much of air power. Yes, they don't have intercontinental ballistic missiles. They cannot reach United States. But they have said that they'll keep attacking the targets in the West Asia region, wherever American bases and facilities are there. So if they are able to hunker down, they will continue to do what they are doing.
Mm.
Some people say that it is maybe short-sighted for them to, you know, fire missiles at the regional countries that are hosting the bases.
Mm-hmm.
But Iranian point of view, and I was watching on NBC an interview of Iranian foreign minister, that if you agree not to develop missile capability, why are you hitting at? And his response was that, look, you guys are attacking my country. I have right to defend.
Mm.
It cannot be that you keep on striking my country
Yeah.
and I will not defend. So that is that side's logic. I also saw a statement by EU foreign chief Kaja Kallas. Basically, she is the vice president of EU and the foreign minister equivalent, saying Iran is doing dangerous things, they should stop hitting at other countries. But it is a war situation. Whether you agree with them or not, if any country is attacked by external enemies, what will they do? They will not fold up, they will respond. They will retaliate with whatever capability they have. And this is what the regime is doing. Now, regime is not equal to the nation of Iran. Nation of Iran is totally different. Yes, we don't know what will happen, uh, you know, but if the conflict continues, then, you know, we may have situation A if the conflict continues,
Yeah.
because it is totally degraded. It is totally degraded, then it may have to kind of, fold. And then what comes after, whether it is a military rule, strict military rule,
Yeah, it
or
might
you,
be.
or you have situation just like Venezuela, where the head of state was abducted and arrested.
Hmm.
Here, the head of state has been killed. Is there any segment of the clerical hierarchy that is willing to be co-opted by US and Israel and take over? And will that substitute be acceptable to United States? So there are a lot of questions, and I think we cannot predict what will happen based on the current situation because hostilities are continuing. There is escalation dominant cycle. Iran claims that they have attacked 4 ballistic missiles on USS Abraham Lincoln. CENTCOM denies it. On the other hand, the CENTCOM says that they sank an Italian corvette. So, as we speak, the war is continuing. My personal guess is that it's not going to be a short war.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like. Now about the this nuclear paradox. So what do you see actually? If a regime believes the survival is at stake, does it accelerate toward the nuclear deterrence?
Look, we have been through this this is like deja vu.
Mm.
Every year, deja vu. Iran is 6 months away from making nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
That is Western propaganda.
Mm.
They had a very good deal, JCPOA, which was multilaterally
Mm.
negotiated
Mm.
with provisions for on-site inspections, and Iran was cooperating with that. In the first Trump administration, because of concerns of Israel and specifically of Netanyahu, Trump cancelled JCPOA. But even then, Iran did not cross the threshold. Iran did not cross the Lakshman Rekha. They continued to say that we have the capability, we are enriching, but we shall not make nuclear bomb. And in fact, Khamenei himself had said that it is immoral to possess nuclear weapons. So nuclear weapons is a red herring.
Mm.
Issue is regime change. If you look at the geopolitical situation, there was a regime change in Iran in 1954.
Mm.
When then Iranian Prime Minister nationalized the oil companies, there was a regime change. He was kicked out. Shah Reza Pahlavi was installed. So Iranians, if you talk to them, and it's not necessarily the supporters of the Islamic regime,
Mm.
even people who are, democratic and all, they still hark back to 1954 that CIA did a regime change in Iran in 1954.
Mm.
What it culminated into was the 1979 Islamic Revolution, and it was actually not Islamic Revolution, it was a popular uprising against a despot, that was Shah. Although he was progressive, he was modern, he did a lot of good things for Iran, education, women's uprising, emancipation, and all that sort of thing. But nevertheless, he was a despot. He was a dictator who was in bed with US, and the civilian population of Iran revolted.
mm,
What happened subsequent to that, that the clerics, the Islamic clerics, sort of use up that opportunity in cahoots with the leftists and communists and took over the regime. So, one regime change, you have an Islamic theocracy installed in 1979.
mm,
You have not been able to dislodge them, and you do repeated strikes like in 2025. And now,
mm.
what will this do? It may harden actually the nationalistic sentiment,
Yeah.
and it may do opposite of what the West wants.
Okay.
Whenever there's a nation in crisis, what happens? The patriotic citizens start supporting the government. That happens in time of national calamity. So to think that Islamic regime would be so degraded that the population will rise and take over the power, yes, that is one scenario. But on the other hand, other scenarios that people may say,
Mm,
just a minute, people may say
mm,
that what is being done is not just. It's not just the national politics, it's the international politics in which you have the imperial powers, that is what they call Israel, they call it Zionist power, and United States, in cahoots with the other sheikdoms and emirates in the West Asia, are conspiring against Iran. So it may lead to hardening of nationalist sentiments. That possibility is also there. But the Islamic regime cannot match the firepower and fury of the American might. That's a reality. How long they will be able to sustain and hunker down, we cannot predict at this point in time. One
no.
thing is sure, if the conflict escalates and there are more US casualties,
Yeah. Mm,
what would be the popular opinion in United States?
mm,
That will also determine the outcome of this conflict.
mm,
You have a situation already that US is also heavily divided, very, very divided country, where the Democrat politicians are already criticizing. Leftist liberal media is also criticizing that this is a war of choice. There was no imminent threat. And some people are saying that the regime in US is doing it to deflect the opinion,
mm,
popular focus from the Epstein files,
mhm,
and also to create a nationalistic, jingoistic, patriotic favor, because US is going to have midterm elections
mm,
in November, and they are hoping the party in administration to reap the dividends of victory of war, because economy is not doing so great, there are missteps in other areas and things like that. So if there are only 3 soldiers are killed now and 5 are wounded,
You
what if
were
it?
saying three, but I spoke to someone else also, Saptarshi Basu, in the evening today only. So he was saying over 100 soldiers have died. And if this more soldiers die, then the public in US will go against Trump.
So in any war, what both the sides do as part of psychological warfare,
Yeah.
they deny the extent of loss, at least initially. Uh, as we talked about Abraham Lincoln strike on that, US has totally denied it. Now we don't have any OSINT, open source intelligence, to say confirm or deny whether that is true or not.
Yeah.
Similarly, there is no OSINT that actually contradicts US point of view that three soldiers are dead, five are wounded. We know what Chinese did in the Galwan clash. They
Yeah.
still say four soldiers were killed by India. India openly said 20, but they still say four. But there was some satellite imagery suggesting more than 100 graves. So
Mm.
this happens in all the wars, and we are in an era of social media, satellite surveillance. So you will not be able to hide that kind of number for a very long time, especially in a democratic setup.
Mm.
It will depend upon how many body bags come. The body bags determine the future of the war.
Because the American doesn't like it if their soldiers get killed.
Yes, and that in a situation when Donald Trump said that he is not going to initiate any new wars, he's a peace president. He was taking credit for solving 8 wars and wanted a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump in January of 2012 said
Mhm.
Obama was going to strike at Iran because he wants to win his next election. And
Mm.
he made that kind of statement several times. So while he initially said that he's not going to engage in any new wars, he's engaging in wars after wars.
Yeah. Mm.
Even the operation special law enforcement operation in Venezuela was a war without authorization from the US Congress. So you have a situation which is based upon the new international order, which or old new international order, that might is right. There's no rules-based order, and
Mm.
the powerful can decide whatever they want to do. That is what is happening. I have no moral sympathy for the Islamic regime in Iran,
Yeah.
but I guess whatever feeble defenses they are putting or retaliatory strikes they are making, they
Mm.
have a point that yes, you are attacking our country, so we will defend with all our might, whatever we have.
So coming to power dimension, 80% of Iranian oil reportedly goes to China, and Russia has condemned the strikes. So is this still an Iran crisis or the early chapter of systematic confrontation between the US-led order and Russia-China counter bloc?
So it's the same issue with Venezuela.
Yeah.
Venezuelan oil was going to China, majority China, and small amount to Cuba and Mexico and things like that. By controlling Venezuelan oil, US dealt a blow to a challenging hegemon, which is China. And now attack on Iran. So regime change is definitely one thing, but also control of Iranian oil supply has always been the fascination of Western imperialism. They go hand in hand together. And since China was benefiting, it's basically choking Chinese supplies of oil. And what China will do, they will start getting more and more oil from Russia because China does not produce oil on its own. So they will get more and more supplies by land pipelines and all those sort of things from Russia. You have de facto an unstable world order in which US led Western powers are on one side, but there are frictions among them. They don't agree with what US is doing or trying to do in Greenland. and they have some concerns about the trade policies and all that sort of thing. So the so-called West is not so united anymore. This is the first conflict in which the British poodle did not follow the master with tail behind its leg on day one. Initially, they said, no, we don't have any threat from Iran and we would not like to use our facilities. It's only when the second day came
Mm.
that British Prime Minister said they might join, and that kind of noise. So these are power games big powers are playing, and it has already become a regional West Asian war. But I don't expect either Russian Federation or China to actually join the war. They don't want direct confrontation with United States. They never did that. But they will be proxy wars.
Mm.
They will be after effects or consequences. What you are seeing for last 4 years in Ukraine is response to unchallenged domination of NATO and expansion of NATO in the Europe coming to the Russian doorsteps. Similarly, you have China watching that its own interests are being nibbled away. So they are not going to get into a fight with United States because of the nuclear arms and all that sort of thing. But you may start seeing possibly China activating its plan to take over Taiwan or some hostilities in Northeast Asia region. That's a possibility you cannot discount. Where if the United States is distracted in Iran, whole of the West Asia, in Venezuela, wants to take over Greenland, has conflicts with multiple countries, and is overextended,
Mhm.
China will make use of this opportunity to basically take over Taiwan. And United States may not be able to, put its forces into action,
Yeah.
Taiwan Straits.
So now coming to close, what is the next 90 days? What are the three signals should we watch over the next 90 days?
Look, 90 days is too long. This is day two of the conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot predict a single day in war how it is going to go.
Take 30 days. What do you say?
I still remember that mission accomplished banner by George W. Bush
Yeah.
in Second Iraq War.
Yeah.
And after that mission accomplished regime change, what happened?
Right.
United States got bogged down into nation building and whatever thing in Iraq.
Mm.
Same thing happened in Afghanistan. So there is a limit to US staying capability in any theater. They are very good in establishing air dominance, and they have massive, massive naval power, but they have limitation in terms of boots on the ground. Iran is a large country, and if you really want, regime change, probably you will need boots on the ground because Islamic regime has been in power since 1979. It is 46 years. And yes, they are weak. They don't have all that capability that US or Israel have. And yes, Israel has very good intelligence operations within Iran because of disgruntled people or Iranian Jews or others. And yes, they did a decapitating strike on the compound of Khamenei where 48 leaders, not just people, leaders were killed. Issue
Earlier,
is that,
earlier he was hiding in bunkers.
yeah, previously he was hiding in bunkers and he didn't think that, they will attack his headquarters. So they were all, it was a strategic mistake. It was a strategic mistake on their part that you have all the leadership gather there in the same compound. They never thought that, a decapitating strike would be done. Having said that, they had planned for this kind of scenario. So they have succession plans. In the short run, US will prevail. Okay.
Yeah.
Issue is that whether Islamic regime is dislodged or not.
Mm.
Nobody is going to shed tears if the Islamic regime is dislodged, except
Mm.
for the Islamists. Or maybe certain people in India who are, doing demonstrations on Jantar Mantar. I saw that.
Yeah.
But that's a silly thing to do. But in the entire world, nobody is going to shed a tear. Like nobody shed a tear for Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah.
The guy was entrenched, but is gone. His supporters, the Russian Federation, ultimately caved in because you need to do damage control. You don't want to put all your might into every war. And at this point in time, Russian Federation does not have the might, does not have the
Yeah.
fortitude to enter into another theater of conflict. They are not going to do anything. Chinese never enter into a direct war with United States. So yes,
With anyone actually, not United States. The Chinese don't go to war actually. They focus on economics.
no, they can have limited operations here and there with India, with Vietnam. They have had, but they will exploit this opportunity. Possibly, if it goes to long to length, to take over Taiwan. If United States is distracted, is having internal problems, political and all. U.S. society is very divided, and if there are more casualties, as we discussed, the popular opinion currently is pro strikes.
Mm.
If you see on TV or in the media, everybody is very nationalistic, jingoistic, patriotic. Oh, those were the evil people. Khamenei
Our
was
time is
evil.
up. We have less than a minute. So let's wind up the discussion.
Okay.
We started today with a leadership strike. We end with a much bigger question about global order. If removing a regime's top leadership becomes an accepted tool of statecraft, what stops others from doing the same? And if cornered state conclude that only nuclear weapons guarantee survival, are we about to see acceleration, not restraint? The next 90 days or say 30 days, because this is the dynamic situation, will tell us whether this was a moment of stabilization or the beginning of a more dangerous era. The question is, are we witnessing the enforcement of deterrence or the collapse of it?